In today's video, I'm going to show you how I take an old tool chest that I bought at a yard sale for $5 this summer and make it over into beautiful storage for my craft room. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And of course, you can always find me on Instagram at Nicole North Garden. Here we go. I picked up this old tool chest at a yard sale for $5. This Trash to Treasure is part of the Flippin' Fridays challenge hosted by Jamie from Border Bananas and Border Bananas DIY. When you're done watching my video, go ahead and check out the playlist, and I will link to her channels in my description box. The tool chest rolls. I kept this footage in so you could see how it works. And I decided to go ahead and paint it because as much as the old finish is kind of cool, it doesn't go with the room that I'm putting it in. So the first thing I did was to give it a good wipe down. It was pretty dirty, and I just used some soap and water and a rag. To paint the chest, I chose this Deco Art chalk paint in the color Vintage, and I absolutely love this chalk paint. I had never used it before. I usually use Rust-Oleum products, but this gave really good coverage. And I wound up giving it 2 coats. I used both my mini roller and a brush. In most places, it really didn't need the second coat. I kind of just did it because that's what I'm used to doing, but I might have been able to get away with one really good coat. I then used some 60 grit sandpaper to rough it up. I chose 60 because I had started with a finer grit, but the paint was so good and adhered so well that I was having trouble getting it off. So I needed the rougher grit to be able to distress it. And I did it on lots of the edges and corners. I really wanted this to look like this handyman had used this tool chest and that it had gotten roughed up through his use and through time. I made sure to focus on the parts that would have gotten the most wear. So the area near the lock where he would have locked it and unlocked it and it would have clanked a little. And then I used my rag to wipe away the dust that was left over. This is what it looked like after the painting and the first part of the distressing. And I do not have a Cricut, so I printed out some words on my computer using Microsoft Word. I just always reverse the image and I print them out on my laser printer. And then I cut the words out and I used my yardstick to make sure that it got centered appropriately. And I chose the words Smith Brothers Handyman Services, Minneapolis, because I wanted it to seem like something that was a little more authentic. And so then I use my polyacrylic and I paint that on with a paintbrush, both onto the words and onto the chest itself, because that allows you to have a little bit more of an adjustable placement. And then I just go ahead and put all the words on in the same fashion. And once your words are placed, you can see here I'm actually using a pizza stone scraper from Pampered Chef, but you can also use a credit card to just smooth it out and get any air bubbles out. And I did that with all 3 layers of the words. And then to let the words transfer properly, you need to let this dry overnight. And the next morning I came in with some water in my Oofda mug and my rag, and I go ahead and I just use the water to wet down the paper, because basically what you're going to be doing is rubbing the paper off of the words. And so the paper comes off and leaves the laser ink behind. I use this process a lot, and so usually what I do is I use the rag at first to get it all wet and to rub off the first larger bits, and then I go in with my fingers and start to gently rub off the rest of it. You have to be careful because you can rub off the letters. In this case, that was good. I actually wanted the letters to come off more than they did. The transfer worked so well this time, but you just have to be careful to make sure you're not taking off more than you mean to from the letters. Once most of the paper was off, I went in between the letters with my finger and just very carefully got some of the polyacrylic off from in between the lines. And then when I was done doing that, there was still some residue. You could kind of see the outline of where the polyacrylic and the paper had ended. So I came in with a little bit of sandpaper and just sanded on the edges around where the polyacrylic had been, and that helped to blend it in better. And then to do the final bit of distressing, I used my Rust-Oleum chalked aged glaze. I use this product a lot, and I get my cup of water and my trusty rag again, and I just dampen the rag, and then I very minimally dip my rag into the glaze and get just a tiny bit on, and then I wipe it on, and it, it makes it look like a tiger. It's all striped, but then you just go back with your damp part of your rag and wipe it off, and it basically leaves the aged glaze behind in all the little crevices on your piece. And I did this process to all the sides of the chest as well as to the top. I came in with a little bit of sandpaper on the top at the end there just to give it a little more distressing, and then I wiped it down with my trusty rag, and then I called this one done. I am super happy with how this turned out, and it looks amazing in my craft room. Right now, what is stored in it are like other frames and things that I will be upcycling. I haven't figured out what to put in the tray yet, but that means that I can just have more room to get more craft supplies. I hope you've enjoyed this DIY thrift store makeover. If you like this kind of content, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, and of course find me on Instagram at Nicole North Garden. Thanks for watching.